Welcome back, ISHTUers. On today's episode, Carlos tells us about a client he has that's probably going about lead generation all wrong. What is your process for lead generation? Do you have a process? What is your goal? Listen to today's episode and find out how to structure lead generation and get your mind right about it. Straight from Miami, this is It Shouldn't Happen to Us. After 30 plus years of selling and training sales teams, we still screw it up sometimes. And this is where we tell you all about it because it shouldn't happen to us.
Welcome,
ISHTUers.
ISHTUers.
Damn, you look good.
Do you like these? Again, I've decided
these.
to go back to them. I don't know. I think I look like an idiot with them on, but there we are.
What do you got for today's episode, Carlos?
What have I got for today? I'll tell you what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about a system, about having a prospecting system. Do you know, I've had some super cool feedback on last week's episode on cold calling. And it tells me that our public, our people, they need help prospecting, lead generating, right? That's not a surprise, I suppose, right?
Not a surprise.
It's not a surprise. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about lead gen as a part of an overall selling system. And we have a cool client. I won't mention their name, but I know they listen to the pod. So as soon as I share some details, you'll know I'm talking about you. But I had a session with them this week about, do you know, there was a little frustration, there was a little angst. There was some salespeople and there was the leaders of the group, and there was angst between the two. So I was quite provocative. I was being provocative Carlos. I was playing provocative Carlos. And I said to the team, hey team, tell me your goal. And they went, oh, what do you mean, Carlos? And I went, let's leave it at that. Tell me your goals. Tell me your selling goals. And I sat back and I wanted to hear, quota, what they're supposed to produce, dollars, volume, maybe activity goals. I don't know. And nobody knew. Nobody on the team knew. Now, I knew what their goal were because the sales manager had sent me them beforehand, like, here's the goals, here's what we're trying to get to. And they didn't know. And and you know who you are, the sales manager, and I know you listen to the pod. But even the sales manager was like, the goals I read were a little wishy-washy. It was very results-oriented, not activity-based. There was no activity in there. There was no clarity. There was goals like this amount or that amount. It's like, well, what is it? Is it that amount or is it that amount? Like,
it's crazy, Carlos, because I feel like most of our clients, when I ask the salespeople what is the goal, there is not clarity. There's no clarity on that number, which it's that's gotta create anxiety.
It's pretty bloody fundamental, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute. Does anyone see the problem here? Nobody knows what good looks like. And so the sales team all think they look great. Of course, if you don't know what good looks like, you look in the mirror and you go, good looking. So nobody knows what good looks like. Sales team think they look good. Sales leaders and owner, guess what? Because nobody knows what good looks like, they think everyone looks bad. And nobody knows. And there's angst and conflict. So I was like, okay, guys, we're together for an hour. Let's shake this down, right? Let's really get some absolute clarity. Let's create it now, right now. Let's create, and I showed them the kind of the arc, right? Which is like, let's look at measuring three different things. We're going to measure the result, dollars out at the end, because everybody needs that. What's the dollars at the end? The result. And I know you're all going to want to tell me volumes and different numbers. I'm interested in dollars. Let's do dollars at the end. Then we're going to talk about a selling system that drives that result, right? So there's a selling system in the middle that drives that result. How are we going to measure that? And then there's a lead generating system that's generating the stuff, the fodder for the sales system that ultimately is creating results. Three different baskets. And in each one, we're going to measure. We're going to measure the result. In the selling system, we're going to measure the pipeline. We're going to measure pipeline in the selling system. How many things you got in your pipeline? Because that's a good fit for them, pipeline. We've got other clients where pipeline's a pretty bad fit. For us, pipeline's a great fit, right? We do pipeline measurements and the people in our team, and if If you saw my pipeline, Sophia, it'd scare the pants off you. I mean, honestly, if it fell on you, it'd kill you. But we measure pipeline. And then there's what are we going to measure at the lead gen end? We're going to measure activity. And everyone was, it's interesting. Let me tell you what happened. Then I want your view. Mm-hmm. At the beginning, everyone, when we had this discovery that nobody knew what good looked like, when we'd had that discovery, the sales team were all like, "Oh yeah, no, this isn't good enough. No, we need to know what we need to measure. We need to measure." But when we actually started identifying the things that we're going to measure, people got a little uncomfortable. Wait a minute, am I going to get measured on? Have I got things have I got to get in my pipeline? And what is my activity? So it's powerful, it's necessary, but nobody wants to be measured like that. It's important, you got to be. But I don't know, you tell me when you were selling, do you want to be measured? Did you want your activity measured? Did you want your result measured?
I did want my result measured, and I also wanted to know what good looked like and what great looked like and what not so great looked like, because I wanted to be great. And if I don't know what great looks
you are
like
great, so
behaviors,
you are great.
Well, but when I first started selling, I probably wasn't so great, and I was cutting my teeth. I do want to be measured, and I want that healthy competition with the team, and I want to see my name up on the board, and I want to be given that positive reinforcement for using the CRM correctly, and I want to do call recordings. Yeah, I mean, I think that's and if not, it's like running a marathon with no finish line. If not, it's sort of like you're like the hamster on the wheel. You think you're doing a good job, but you're not really sure. I think that can create a lot of anxiety and burnout. I think that creates burnout. I think you get to Friday and kind of feel like, well, I'm working, but what is it all for? And am I doing great? And does my manager think I'm doing great? And does my does leadership think I'm doing great?
Here's the question. Let's imagine you're an ISHTU listener, right? Let's imagine ISHTU listener listening to this, and they haven't got a quota. They haven't got, maybe they work for themselves. Maybe they work for a company that hasn't been real, hyper specific about what the goal is, what the activity goal is, what the result goal is, what pipeline should look like. What should somebody do in that circumstance? And then we're going to talk specifically, I do want to talk about the lead gen part today. But if you've not got somebody holding a sort of Damocles over you, if you've not got somebody telling you what you should do, and you're on your own, and your family's dependent on what you're producing, like, what are you going to do? What should you do you think?
Well, we have to come up with a system, don't we? We got to come up with a plan. There's got to be some type of process that we can lean on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we got to come up with a goal. And it can be as simple as how much what you want your annual income to be? And then we work it backwards, right?
Do you know, we have a tool for that, right? It's the Cookbook.
Yeah, we have a tool for that. It's called the Cookbook.
The Cookbook Creator.
Our clients don't like it.
They like the idea of it until they see the details. And then they're like, wait a minute, at the end of this
I like the idea of hiring a personal trainer, right?
Until he's making you get up at 5 a.m. and do whatever burpees till 6, right?
Exactly.
Well, everyone likes the idea of our Cookbook Creator until they start to like, oh, this is how much nice. The top end of it is nice, right? How much do you want to earn? Oh, beautiful. Love that. Lots of zeros there. And then you start to step through conversion rates, average deal size, volume of deal. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. And then you end up with 900 cold calls a day. Okay, something we need to fix something in this equation, because
I remember the first time when I was a client, before I came onto the team, I remember doing that exercise and it was a number like that. It was like 900 a day. And I was like, well, I better get dialing.
Yes. So then you've got a choice, right? You've got all the math. You've got this top line number. That's what I want to earn. Well, you could bring that down. No one wants to do that, right? Or you can look at the bottom of the exercise and go, wait, if it's telling me 900 dials and I'm making 900 dials, I mean, 900 is you actually couldn't do. But you could, I know people that do 200 dials a day. If it's 200 dials, I'm like, okay, shit, 200 dials. Or you can fix some of the mathematical formula in the middle, like how do I improve that conversion rate, or how do I improve my average deal size, or so you can then actually look at the sales system, right? So this in tool form is these three measurements that I was talking about. It's the top end is the result, then you've got the selling system in the middle, pipeline performance, and then you've got the activities that's the end result of our cookbook creator tool. And by the way, for those of you, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, if you want to see our cookbook creator, there's a real simple way of doing it. You subscribe. First thing you got to do is hit like and subscribe to whatever you're listening or watching this on. That, because there are a lot of people that don't subscribe. Can you believe it, Sophia? These foolish people.
Gosh,
I don't know what's going on in the world. What are you doing? So you got to get on. You got to get on and subscribe, and you do the likes and all that stuff. Then you got to hitch up your skirts and dash over to our podcast website, which you'll see in the notes to the show, the ISHTU podcast. There you can sign up for our newsletter, and on the newsletter, I will make sure that on Monday's newsletter, by the way, I got cool feedback to this Monday's newsletter. Mike Gaffigan, if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, thanks for that email, buddy. But you go over to our newsletter, you sign up for the newsletter. I will make sure on Monday our newsletter contains a link where you can get I tell you, just as I articulated that out loud, it seemed very complex what someone had to do. They had to like, they had to subscribe, they had to sign up for the newsletter, and then in the newsletter they're going to click.
Get a wolf.
You have to
find the hair of a wolf.
That's right.
Go to the cemetery. Find.
Make sure you've got your bottle of unicorn tears on you.
Unicorn tears on it. Then you got to spin around 3 times saying this spell in German.
And then maybe on Christmas Day, you'll find the cookbook creator tool. Hey, here's another way of doing it. You could do all those things, or you could just email me or Sophia, and we'll send you our cookbook creator. How's about that? That's a good way of doing it.
How about that?
We'll send you our cookbook creator tool.
Look, the cookbook. So what is the cookbook? I bet you guys are thinking, all right, before I go to the cemetery, can you guys tell me what the hell this thing is?
My shark's tooth and my unicorn tears.
Shark's tooth and right.
It's like a scene from Harry Potter.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Get mugwort.
Yeah.
Gillyweed.
Gillyweed. That's great, yeah.
What is a cookbook? So let's say that I'm making a recipe. Let's say I'm preparing
excuse me,
tikka masala.
Oh, I like to make a tikka masala.
I love me some tikka masala.
In fact, just this weekend, I was watching Jamie Oliver on TV make a tikka masala.
Oh, Jamie Oliver, if you're listening to this podcast,
I hope you do.
I'm a big fan.
He's called the Naked Chef in the UK.
That's right.
Now that's giving you an image. I saw the image hit your eyes there, and it was like,
I know, it's real. It's quite tasty. I do love his lisp. It's quite sexy when he says chicken.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, Jamie Oliver, if you're listening to this, so if I want to make tikka masala, I have to have my ingredients.
Oh, I thought you were going to guess. I honestly thought you were about to guess the ingredients of chicken masala, and then about 3 ingredients in, you'd have come to the realization that nobody really knows what the ingredients of chicken masala is. You know, you might have got through coriander, chili, and then like, oh God, cumin, like paprika, I don't know, paprika.
Yeah. So in order to, the end result is the dish, but I need my ingredients and I need my steps. So the cookbook works the same. Your goal is the tikka masala. The annual income is the tikka masala that you'd like to end up with. But if we work it backwards, we got to, okay, what tools do I need? So if there's tools in the tikka masala recipe, it might be a whisk, it might be a pot, right? For prospecting, lead generation, our tools are our 30-second commercials. Some call it the elevator pitch.
Yep.
How do you generate interest in the first 60 seconds of a cold call, the first 60 seconds of a cold walk-in, the first 30 seconds of a video prospecting
email? Networking event. So you need it for your networking event, right?
Right. So that's your tools. You got to have your tools. So your 30-second commercial. And what are the steps? How many calls are you, because we can't, In sales, we spend so much time chasing a number. Managers, leadership have us chasing that number. Well, we can't control the number. I can't hold my prospects at gunpoint and say, listen, man, I told my wife I'm going to make $250K this year. And I need to close you today in order to hit that goal. We can't do that. Maybe in some countries, ISHTU, I don't know. Maybe there's some countries you maybe can do that. But for the most part, we can't manage the number. So the cookbook gives us the freedom to focus on what we can control, which is how many dials, how many touches, whether it's dials, emails, LinkedIn, networkers, free talks, referral asks, referrals given, whatever it is. How many of those am I going to make a day? How am I going to execute those? What am I going to say? How am I going to engage prospects? Not just the show up and throw up, not just talk about features and benefits. How am I going to ask great? How am I going to be provocative? How am I going to ask questions that help me facilitate a conversation where we figure out together, are there some gaps? Are there not? Do you know someone who has gaps? Right? So it's the plan, how many, and you got to think about each salesperson, each ISHTUer listening, what is your magic mix? Some of you don't, our last episode was on cold calling. I encourage you to listen to it if you haven't already. Some of you, cold calling ain't it. Some of you, for me, I did plenty of cold calling, and I think it made me a really steely salesperson. I think I believe in cold calling, and I think it's the pattern interrupt of the 21st century. I really do. But you got to decide what's going to be your mix. Is it going to be cold calling, networkers, and emails? How many of those? And don't put all your eggs in one basket because you're going to be disappointed. 100%. It's like you got to have a magic. Think about it like a pie with the slices, right? You got to think what is going to be your pie of prospecting behaviors. I don't know why this question comes to mind. It's like trying to figure out which drink gave you a hangover. Was it the first drink or was it the last drink? And it's a trick question because it's a combination of all the drinks.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get a hangover, but we are trying to make tikka masala. So what was it, the coriander or was it the cumin that gave us that flavor? Well, it was the steps. It was putting the buttermilk in at the right time and not having the pan too hot. So it's really a recipe. The cookbook is a recipe. There's a reason why you don't put warm, they want the butter to be room temperature. There's got to be a method to the madness of the recipe. And it's the same thing with your cookbook. Does that make sense?
It does. So so I was sat with this client and we did the result part of the puzzle, and then we did the pipeline part of the puzzle. How many deals should you have in the pipeline, and what's the velocity? How long should it take on average for something to flow through that pipeline, and what qualifies something as a pipeline? We did that. And then we got to what is the activity mix that's going to feed this pipeline with these deals that we've all agreed is the right number, that we know if we put those deals in that pipeline, we've got a great confidence of that right dollar flow at the end. What's the behavior mix? And it was cool. And I remember when we did it for our business, and I always love doing it with a client because you can really step back and say, okay, so what have we got available to us, folks? Let's go through them. Networking, we've got networking. This particular client, we've got LinkedIn. Nearly all our clients can use LinkedIn well. How many of our clients do use LinkedIn well? We try and get them. We teach them, eventually they get it. But LinkedIn is a hugely it's a tool that is underutilized by us too, by the way. And it shouldn't happen to us, but it happens to us too. Because I'd done this exercise with this client, I thought, you know what? I'm going to get in my LinkedIn. It was yesterday. So I got in my link, started bashing away in LinkedIn, spent half an hour in LinkedIn, sparked up 4 or 5 new connections. Who knows? Some of them might turn into business. Who knows? I don't know. So they had networking because they're in quite a cool little market. They had LinkedIn. We've got cold calls. We've got warm calls. We've got referral asks. We've got center of influence, always overlooked center of influence strategy. Now, everybody says I've got centers of influence. Oh, I've got people who refer me business. Of course I do, Carlos. Plenty of centers of influence. Yeah, having a center of influence and working a center of influence are two entire. I've got a Peloton sat right behind this camera. I've got a Peloton. Don't often put my fat ass on it, but I've got a Peloton and it isn't helping me if I'm not on it. The center of influence, everyone's got, I've got people who always refer me business. Yeah, but if you work them, if you sit with them, if you have conversations with them, if you take them out, if you take them to lunch, if you go to a networking event with them, like if you work them. So center of influence strategy, LinkedIn networking, warm calls, cold calls, referrals. They were the 6 major activities that fit for these clients. Look at our business. When you look at what our sales team are doing, it's very different to what you and I were doing when we were selling full time. When you and I were selling full time, we were heavy networkers, some cold calling. Actually, you used to do quite a bit of cold calling. You were always the walk-in master, cold walk-in master. I mean, I think you've still got your Olympic medal, right, for walk-ins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's hard not to be if you're just doing the walk-in, I think you can blow a walk-in, but like the fact that you're there, people are appalled by that. They are appalled by the fact that you just walked in and are hoping to maybe have a conversation with the final boss. Yeah. Like they are perplexed by that. And something about that, I would end up in a lot of presidents' offices. And then you have to be ready. Don't blow it, right? But yeah, cold walk-ins all day. I spoke to one of our clients the other day on Mastery, and she was saying, "Oh, I love cold walk-ins." I was like, "Yeah." It's good to hear that people still like to. I've
got to ask you, right? So let's imagine our ISHTU community now are thinking, "Oh, cold walk-in. Walk into an office. How did you used to handle the gatekeeper?" And I know it's different for different gatekeepers. Sometimes the dragon needed slaying, and sometimes you needed to befriend them. So what was your go-to?
Well, I'm going to give full credit to Jamie Kane, who taught me this.
Okay.
This cold walk-in tactic.
I love Jamie Kane. Right.
I love Jamie Kane. If you're listening, Jamie, we love you. He used to say, so the day before, you can't just be random about it. You got to be intentional. Be intentional about it. So the day before, you decide what's the route you're going to go on. And you find out what commercial building you're going to hit up.
Yeah.
You're going to hit, right? So you send an email you find out who the decision maker is. This was before Zoom Info. This was freaking sunbiz.com.
Yeah. Okay.
I would use sunbiz.com, find out the name of the decision maker, find his email the best you can. If not, find the gatekeeper, find the info at company.com, whatever. And you send an email letting them know that you're going to be coming by the next day. Not, I'm in the area. Hey, I'm coming by to drop something off. Don't apologize for it. Just let them know they're coming by. They never really read this email, but it doesn't matter because it's designed to just cover your ass. Because when you walk in the next day, he gave me this theater that is so weird that it works. So what you're going to do is that you're going to fit whatever your leave behinds are. Every company has some marketing brochure leave behind. You're going to put it in an envelope. Okay. And you're going to prepare the day before that envelope. For us, it was that pamphlet, Why Salespeople Fail and What to Do About It. Yeah. You're going to put that in an envelope and you're going to put that person's full name on these envelopes. So you're going to walk in to the office. And the gatekeeper, for some reason, the gatekeeper is always in these types of offices. Their desk is like all the way up here. It's a very odd thing where they're like looking up at you. And there's always like little business cards and brochures and things like that, when you get to a place like this. So you're going to walk in with this envelope with their full name under your arm in a way that they can see the name. So you want to use a Sharpie so it's nice and bold.
Alex Jones here, whatever. Yeah.
Alex Jones, right? So you're going to walk in, hi, how you doing? And so you're not even, you wait until they ask, can I help you? But you're going to say, yeah, hi, how you doing? And you're just going to start picking cards and brochures in a kind of odd way until they ask, can I help you? Oh yeah, I'm here to see Alex Jones. Oh, okay. May I ask who, your name? Oh, Sophia Rodriguez. Oh, okay, great. Does he know you're coming by today? Yeah, he does, right? Because you sent your email the day before. All right, great. I'll let him know that you're here. And sometimes it'd be like, oh, well, he's really busy right now. But I'll tell you 3 times out of 5, I would indeed end up in the office. Now you got to be ready to do that dance.
Yeah.
Because they don't know you from a load of hay, and it's very peculiar and odd that you're showing up. But let me tell you something. That shit worked.
Yeah.
So funny. And then you got to be like, hey, I bet this is pretty weird. I'm a perfect stranger, aren't I? And they're like, yeah. Look, I came to drop this off. I'd like you to give it a gander. And then I'm going to send you an email, and I'd like to hear some of your takeaways. It just very. The theater was just very peculiar, very odd. It was like Mr. Bean meets Columbo meets, and then you do your 30-second commercial. You do your elevator pitch. I don't even know if it makes sense to have a conversation. 30-second commercial like we reviewed in our cold calling episode. So listen to our cold calling episode if you haven't. And then bam fam, try to book a meeting from a meeting, leave them the leave behind. Sometimes I wouldn't even leave it. Sometimes I wouldn't even leave the leave behind.
I tell you what is cool when you say to them, hey, this has got this envelope here has got a brochure in it. I tell you the truth, it's a bit shit. I'm not going to leave it. I'm not going to leave it. It's not as good as it should be. Right? I'm not even going to leave it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back tomorrow. I know you're busy today. I mean, there's so many. I tell you, one of the things I used to do when I closed a deal, right? I remember I closed in the middle of Brickell in Miami. There was like an insurance agency, not property casualty type insurance, life insurance and investments and wealth management, that kind of down in Brickell. And I closed the deal. And then I used to have a policy that if they had a physical location, then the next door both ways, right? The next business both ways, I had a policy that I would go and introduce myself to either side, right? So because the sort of theory is the guy next to you, your neighbor, who you got to imagine most of the time they're buddies, right? Your neighbor just bought what I've got. So I have a policy to always introduce myself, right? So I closed this insurance agency, and then I went straight out, went to the next office, which was a law office. Knocked on the door, they opened up, and I said, hey, can I speak to the senior partner? I actually said to Chuck beforehand, do you mind if I knock on a couple of your neighbors' doors? And they was like, yeah, sure. I took that as a promise, right? So now I can knock on the door and say, hey, Chuck next door. I promised Chuck next door I'd meet with the senior partner. George, is George around today? Go and meet George, and I would say, George, I have a policy. Whenever I get in a cool building like this, whenever I get a new client, today I signed up Chuck next door. Sure, you know Chuck, cool guy. I have a policy of introducing myself and seeing if there's somebody else I can help, somebody else who needs my help. And it comes rich in credibility because George knows that Chuck ain't an idiot. George knows that if Chuck's doing it, he wants to do it too. He wants to find out what Chuck's doing. People are inherently a little nosy, right? Are you one of those guys that when you see an open house nearby, you go in and have a look, right? When they're selling a house, people are nosy. Yeah. They want to know what everyone else is doing. So that's a cool walk-in strategy. It's cool to handle. That's a cool way of handling a gatekeeper too for walk-ins, because you can. Oh, I promised Chuck I would call in and see George. Well, he knows Chuck, as George knows Chuck. The gatekeeper knows Chuck. It's a little theatre. It is a little theatre. I don't think it's underhanded. I don't think it's manipulative. I don't think it's I don't think it's overly stealthy. I think it's a little fun and a little theatre. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, don't go into it feeling like it's a move. And ISHTUers, that's...
Do you know, so the lady, not the lady, and I know she listens to our podcast, but Luna, who's my daughter, she listens to our, she does our memes, right? Because she's like social media head. So she does a lot of our memes. And I said to her this true story. I said, I'm sorry, Luna, I have to tell you. I have to tell this story. So I said to Luna, do me. In fact, she said, oh, I'm hearing it. She's only young. I said, I'm hearing about gatekeepers. Tell me what that is about gatekeepers. So I said, I explained what the issue in sales is with a gatekeeper. So she went, I've got a video for that. And she scurried away and I'll have to send it you. She made a meme for it, which was the video was one person dancing to distract somebody so you can get by. And the caption was, how to distract a gatekeeper to make a sale. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, you didn't understand my analysis of it isn't like a scene from Dungeons and Dragons where you're like, You actually
Right.
distract the keeper of the gate, and the thief like rushes in. It's a completely different philosophy, Luna. It really is. But that's cool technique. Yours is a cool technique. Mine is a cool technique. The cookbook. What we've just talked about is walk-in technique. But walk-in is one.
How many walk-ins are you going to do?
How many are you going to do? That's the cookbook. It's the what am I going to do with it? That's the technique bit. And how many am I going to do? That's the important part. And
measure the numbers. I mean, measure the behaviors, not the numbers.
Yeah, control the controllables. How many hours am I going to spend on LinkedIn a week? How many cold calls am I going to make? How many networking events am I going to go to? And what's the consequence if I say I'm going to go to 3 a week and I only go to 2? Because without a consequence, it's like, might as well not be there. How many referrals am I going to ask for? Which center of influence topics am I going to talk about? How many times am I going to speak in front of a group about what I do? These are the cookbook elements. And I tell you what, if you get that cookbook right, and if your technique's good, what can happen? Tell me what happens to your pipeline if you do that well, if you do the activity well.
Just do the activity well, and the meetings will follow. And the meetings will follow, and the closes will follow, because when you're rocking your cookbook, when you're rocking your prospecting behaviors, when you're having a lot of cool conversations, when you're listening to call recordings, your conviction comes across in a buyer-seller arena. You're not going to accept as much wishy-washy language when you're doing the hard stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, because the cookbook stuff, that is a list of stuff that we don't love to do, and that's okay. Find a way to love it. Find a way to have a cool attitude about it. Learn to fall in love with prospecting, whatever that means for you. And the results and the closes and the meetings will follow.
Amen to that. I tell you what. So we're gonna draw it to a close now, but I do have to tell you that, just to underline what Sophia said, ISHTU. So Monday I did this session with one of my clients, and I as we kind of signed off, I felt a little. I didn't feel like a fraud, but I thought, do you know, there was me telling those guys what they have to do on the activity front, and like I need to up my game. So I did like a good half day of just like hitting the emails and the LinkedIn and the phones. And I just went to my pipeline. I touched everything in my pipeline. And, you know, now, actually, some great things have happened already from it. And this was Monday. But the greatest thing that happened is when I downed tools on Monday at like 6 p.m., 7, I think it might have even been 7. And I'd been at it since 7 in the morning. When I downed tools, I felt like $1 million. I knew doesn't matter what comes out of that. How can money not come out of that? I felt like an absolute $1 million. You let it's what we always tell people, right? Let your behavior drive your attitude, and don't make the mistake of getting your attitude drive your behavior. It's always a trap. It'll always let you down. That will always let you down. But when you let your behavior drive your attitude, hey, you're in control. And I'm a high D. I like to be in control. Hey, Sophia, what a rock star episode. That's all we've got from the pod. Hey, it's goodbye from Sophia.
And goodbye from Carlos.
Take care,
Don't forget to subscribe, folks. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.